On the next episode of Painting and Travel, Sarah tours the Rose Garden on the grounds of the majestic Biltmore Estate in North Carolina. Roger uses oils to create a rose bouquet on a tabletop.
We like to travel in our motorhome, and if you've ever owned one or another type of camper or a tent setup, you know how important it is to get the interior space very comfortable and as useful as possible. So recently, we added a table, which Roger made, and I asked him to decorate it with a bouquet of roses. So for inspiration, we went to the Rose Garden at the Biltmore Estate. And later we'll go there together so we can smell the roses and see the heirloom varieties and the newer ones. But next, Roger's going to show you how he painted this table. I'm very happy with it.
I painted a number of different furniture pieces in the past, and one thing I like about it is that I don't have to get very artistic about it. In other words, I don't have to worry about making a fine art piece. I can have more fun with something like this than I can a regular painting. So let me get started. I have a large selection of paints on my palette today. I have titanium white, ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, naphthol red, Indian yellow, cadmium yellow light, chromium oxide green, hooker's green, and these earth colors, burnt umber, burnt sienna, and yellow ochre. So I have a large palette of colors. I'm going to start with my dark colors, as I usually do. That means picking up my transparent colors. I don't necessarily have to mix them on my palette right here now, especially when I'm getting started. Oh, I also have my spray bottle, and I can't do without this little spray bottle. It keeps things slightly damp. What I want to do here is just put in a dark background. Now the rest of this here is going to be varnished. It's just plain plywood right now, just plain wood. And then I put a couple coats of gesso on this last night, so I'm ready to go with the painting. So I can be much more free with something like this, as opposed to having something that I know is going to go in a gallery. Now when I want something smooth like this, if I scrub like that very hard, then I rub off the paint that's on there. But if I want to cover this and keep it covered, I lay it on like this, and then with a light touch, I just drag my brush over it lightly. And that just blends that to the point where I can't see all those marks underneath. Just giving me some slight underpainting. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to spray this board just a little bit with some water. And those drops of water are right now absorbing some paint that I just put on there. I'm going to wipe my brush off rather well here. Just wipe that brush off and then drag this brush over this paint. And I've just picked up those drops of water, and I've created myself some very interesting texture in there. Okay, I'm going to put down this 1-inch brush, and I'll pick up a slightly smaller brush. And now that I have all my darks on here, now I can start to put some lighter colors on there and some opaque colors. So I can start at this point to add some white to the mix. Everything up here to this stage had no white in it, so that's what kept it very dark. I still want to keep it dark because I want to work from my darks to my lights. If I If you're doing watercolors, of course, that's just the opposite. You'd work from light to dark. But with oils or acrylics, you have to work from, or I prefer to work from dark to light. Now I'm going to put some leaves in here. And I'm not going to get very fussy with the leaves. When I do a leaf like this, I use this flat brush and I just lay it on here and then I twirl it. That makes a pretty good leaf. Go all different directions with that. Just lay it on, just twirl it out. That can go very, very fast. Just different directions and so on. I think up here in the middle, I'll get this lighter. I'm putting in the some of the leaves first, just varying my colors. I'm just picking them up very, very quickly here, just to get a good variation. I'll dip into some of my earth colors too, get that warmer. Some of these colors are warmer and some are cooler. Some have more yellows in them and reds and so on. Just to get this variation. I can put one leaf on top of the other. So if I have a whole set of leaves here, that can dry for just a moment or two, and then I can put other leaves on top of that. Now I guess I'll start to put in a few of these flowers. I'll start with some warm color flowers with some reds, but I'll make them cool first. So I'm going to try and make the center of the flower first. So let me see, let me just put one right in here. Maybe I want another one right up here, and I'm just going to put the center of the flower in, and then I'm going to build out from that center. And I'll pick this color here again and make it slightly warmer and quite a bit lighter. And I'm going to make the center of that rose just by making a few little lines around the center there. Load my brush up. Now I'm going to put in a few more of the petals that go around this. I'm just curving my brush, just making a little like a little U shape there with the brush. Okay, that kind of gives me the center of the rose. Now I'll load my brush up one more time, and now I'm going to put the outer petals of this rose in here. Now I can see I just didn't make that center dark enough. So I'm going to go over it again. That's one nice thing about the acrylics. If it doesn't work out the first time, you just can go over it. I think I sort of misgauged that because until you get a few of these things going, it's hard to tell what values are going to be the right values until you start to get everything in place. I want to put a couple of light colored flowers in here too, roses. And of course, if it's a white flower, it's not going to be very dark anywhere in the rose. But on this shadow side or in the interior part of that rose, it will be somewhat darker. So I'm mixing up sort of a gray color. I'm going to try and get this kind of a middle tone color. This is a middle tone gray. So I'm trying to mix something here that's about the same value as this. Okay, we'll let that dry for a few moments. Maybe I'll put a rose bud or two up in this area. Maybe a darker rose down here. And I'll put another one right up here. So there'll be quite a few roses in this painting. And right now I've got a lot of darks in there and quite a few middle tones, but I don't have very many lights, very many light passages. So I'm going to build this up right now since I have the darks, middle tones, and now I'm going to start putting in some very light passages. Maybe this will be a light colored rose right up here. Maybe that rose is sort of looking away from me. So I may be seeing the sort of the back side of it, the underside of it. And maybe I'll put one large one right in the center here. I'm going to add a few stems right through here, just with a quick line out this way. Get some of my greens, mix them with some blues and a touch of red. Adding red to the greens just sort of cuts down that brightness. And I'll add a few leaves right up here. I think I'll make those lighter, a few of them lighter. Just with that, well, just that flip of that brush. And I'll wipe my brush off, pick up some of that green, and I'll just bring in the little bit of a stem running down through there. I think I'll put quite a few more leaves, maybe bring them right out of the picture here. Keep these very loose and kind of soft. It's pretty dark. I think maybe I'll lighten one area back here. Some blues, maybe a touch of brown, just give that a neutral color. Maybe I'll just lighten this whole area up, but I'm going to keep this quite soft back here, just to give it kind of an out of focus look. Since I've lightened that, now I can take my darker colors, put a few leaves over this, and they really show up well. And maybe a few stems coming in here. And I think I'll warm the center of this rose here. And they really don't look like roses too much yet, but with a few well-placed strokes, I think they might come around and look appropriately like roses. A few more rose buds here and there. Okay, I'll clear my palette one more time. Give myself some more mixing room. White, just a touch of yellow ochre in there. And I'll start to make the center of this rose. Maybe this rose will be looking downward more. So I'll put a few little lines going just around the center. Then I'll build that with just these little tiny curved strokes. They kind of interlock with each other, and then as they go out, they get slightly wider. Outer part of this petal here, this is the larger outside petal. I'll just bring that in. And with some pure white, make a few more of those larger strokes. Those little curved strokes right in here. And then maybe a highlight right at the edge of the larger petal. I'm basically going to do the same thing with these other roses here. I'll mix up a lighter red, maybe some alizarin crimson. Put a few touches right in the center. Now these roses will be looking up slightly more. This one's kind of looking down. Those little half circle shapes again. And they show up because I've got that dark enough now in the center. And I think some bright red here, that's naphthol red, right on the edge of these larger petals. And just bring these, just sort of mash my brush down and drag that in towards the center. And lift my brush up part way in. And then add a few more of these half circle shapes around here where these petals are starting to branch out. I have to have the paint just thin enough where this paint just flows off the brush nice and easy. These two roses look quite a bit alike, almost too much alike. So I think when that dries for a minute, I might put a glaze over that with the acrylics. I don't have to wait very long, and I'll just put maybe a darker wash of red over that. We have some very dark flowers down here. So I'll add a few more petals here. Take this dark red and I'll bring some larger dark red petals right into the center. Now, if I were doing this as an art piece, as a gallery piece, I would really go into this with quite a bit more attention to detail. This is really a sort of a decorative kind of a thing, so I can have a little more fun with it than I can if I were trying to produce something that were more artistic. A lot of this is just suggested, you know, it's not very detailed at all. This tape is coming off. You can see this is just the plywood here underneath. Let me put that tape back down on there. Okay, I think this is dry. So let me take my larger brush. I'll scrape my palette off one more time because I don't want to put any white in this area here where I'm going to put this wash on there. Just get some pure alizarin crimson. And I'll maybe spray that a little bit. We'll just let this red just flow right over that. Sometimes when you put a wash over a color like this, a glaze, that color gets very intense. And that's kind of the idea. But if I pick up any white like I just did on that brush, that really interferes. And that, if there's any white in there, that will kind of defeat the purpose of that glaze. Kind of makes it look like there's maybe a bit of a shadow down there. I think I can do the same right in here. This is cerulean blue now. I'm putting a little bit of a glaze of cerulean blue on there. Okay, I'll make a dark color here, and maybe just to define these more, I'll put some darks next to the lights. Anything with dark next to light will bring attention to that area. So if I put the dark here, it will bring your eye and focus in on this area. Darks next to lights will bring the attention to that area. Now I can go into these leaves even more and put little centers in the leaves themselves, which is quite easy to do. For instance, let's just take this leaf here. If I want to put in a center, I'll just use the edge of my brush, put a little center line in there. It's not totally necessary, but something like this I can pretty much stop at any point, or I can just kind of keep going with it as much as I want. I think just suggesting this little center of the leaf on a few of them sort of gets the idea across for the rest of them. I'm going to add a few more stems. I'll put that stem in there, and then it'll sort of disappear behind the roses, and then maybe I'll see that stem again down here. I'm going to put a few more of those. Now we have a couple rosebuds up here that need some attention. So just a highlight right on the side of these rosebuds. Wash the brush out with some green. Just a flick of the brush and add a few little petals there, and then the stem. A few more dark areas and I think I'll be finished. Maybe a few dark areas right still in this area here to get that focus of attention right up in here. Alizarin crimson again, and another dark glaze down here. Now if this were oils, I couldn't do that glaze until this were perfectly dry, but the acrylics dry so fast that I can put this glaze over that in just a few minutes because this is dry. Now, there might be a little reflection of this red onto the white rose. So with the wash, maybe I'll just take a little bit of that red and wash it over into this white rose. Just a hint of it. Actually, these three flowers here look quite similar. I think it would be a good idea to change the color of at least one of these. I'm going to take my cerulean blue and add some blue to this one here at the top. Just put a whole wash of cerulean blue over that one. That'll just give that a different tonal look. Maybe even a touch of ultramarine blue in there. Yeah, that gives it a little bit more variation. Now I can go back with my red and just hit a few of these petals. A couple more leaves. I'm just having fun with this, really. I think that will do that, at least for a little tabletop painting. I think that will work out all right. Well, let me take the tape off this now, and we'll see what we have underneath. Now, after this dries, I'm going to varnish the painting, and I'm also going to maybe stain, and I'll definitely varnish the board. And after I finish with that, we'll take a look at it and see what it looks like. It's always the really fun part of a painting is to take this tape off. Now, when I pull the tape off, I don't want to pull the tape down this way because I could be pulling some of the paint off within the painting itself. So when I pull tape off, I always pull it off straight back and maybe up a little bit this way. So I'm not going to be peeling any of the paint off in that direction. So here again, I just want to sort of pull this away from the painting. Now often on a piece like this, I'll, in a few minutes, I might add a little thin border around that, maybe black or white or something. I think I may do that. So I think that will work out pretty well for our tabletop in our RV, and I think Sarah might be happy with that.
Welcome to the Biltmore House and Gardens. This is the Rose Garden, and this is the rosarian, Emily Wilson. She specializes in the roses. I'm wondering, is this a fun job?
Absolutely.
And what do people say when they come into the garden and they start to smell the roses?
Usually people come in, they walk down the stairs, and I hear a lot of exclamations of, wow, how gorgeous is this? And people sounding really inspired and excited, even small children.
So people of all ages come here and they're just enraptured with the beautiful colors and styles of roses.
Yes, ma'am. And the smells.
And the smells. How many varieties do you grow?
We grow around 200 plus varieties. We have about 2,000 plus roses in the garden.
And are some heirloom varieties, and then do you have a test patch for new colors and types?
We have antique roses, we have David Austin roses, we have all kinds of different roses. And then we do have areas where we're doing trials. So we have breeders from all over the world send us their trial roses. And then we plant them here and we grow them on for 2 years. And we trial them for different aspects of shape, disease resistance, smell or fragrance of the rose, the colors, and just in general the beauty of the whole shrub. Most of our thought process is geared towards disease resistance. So we are wanting and searching out always these newer varieties that are more disease resistant, and they don't need as many fungicides sprayed on them, because that is the direction that the industry is headed.
I see. I wonder if you try to visualize the beautiful house 100 years ago, they must have had wonderful flower arrangements, many of which must have been roses.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe that they would take many cuttings from the rose garden and bring them up to the house for their guests to enjoy.
Oh, what a joy, indeed, having that lovely fragrance waft through the house.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm wondering if we might take just a little stroll around and look at some of the different varieties up close. Here are some yellow roses, and it's lovely. It seems to have extra petals.
This is a David Austin rose. David Austin is a breeder in England, and he specializes in the English rose. And the English rose typically has this appearance. It's a very full rose.
A cabbage look.
Yes, ma'am.
Ah, I see it now. Really great. The other thing I'd love to see before you have to get back to work is to see you in action. What is a tool of the trade for you?
This guy here.
And exactly how do you use it?
So when you're working with roses, you're pruning roses, you're always thinking about shaping the rose. Every cut you make, you want to shape the shrub.
Oh, so in your mind you're visualizing this whole shrub, and if you cut here, what does it do to the rest of it?
Exactly.
Balance?
Exactly, balance for the shrub. You want to create a shrub that is growing outward and is open. You never want a shrub to be growing in on itself. And where you cut determines where the growth is going to be. This is a perfect example of creating direction with your cuts. We cut here, the leaf was growing in this direction, and because we cut here, it created growth in that same direction. Would you like the rose?
I wouldn't mind. Oh my.
There you go.
Well, this completes a beautiful visit here. You're very generous with your time and your rose. And thanks to the Biltmore Estate for letting us come here and film in the beautiful rose garden.
For more information about painting and travel with Roger and Sarah Bansemer, visit paintingandtravel.com.